pick that turned into a warning sign. The Washington Wizards just drafted the most hyped young player in basketball, and somehow the celebration already feels like a crisis. AJ Dybansa was supposed to be the easy answer. The number one pick. The franchise savior. The kid with the size, scoring touch, confidence, and superstar aura that every rebuilding team dreams about. But the moment Washington called his name, the NBA world did not just ask, how good can he become? They asked something much darker. Did the Wizards just put a generational talent in the wrong situation? That is what makes this story so dangerous. Because Dybansa is not walking into a clean rebuild. He is not joining a quiet young team ready to hand him the keys and grow around him. He is stepping into a franchise that has been desperate for relevance. A roster already filled with big personalities, major expectations, and veteran stars who need the ball, need respect, and need to win now. And that creates a problem before his first NBA game even begins. Washington wants to sell hope. The fans want to believe. The front office wants everyone to think the plan is finally working. But behind all that excitement is a question nobody can ignore. Can the Wizards actually build around AJ Dybansa, or will they repeat the same mistakes that have haunted this franchise for years? This is not about talent. Dybansa has the talent. This is about timing. It is about power. It is about whether a teenager with franchise player expectations can grow inside a system that may already be too crowded, too impatient, and too unstable. That is why the rumors hit so hard. When people hear that the number one pick could already be linked to trade talk or future frustration, it sounds unbelievable. But when you look closer at Washington's history, the roster fit, the pressure to win, and the kind of player Dybansa believes he is, the story starts to make sense. Tonight, we are breaking down how a dream draft night turned into one of the most fascinating situations in the NBA. Before we continue, tell us where you are watching from. If you believe AJ Dybansa will become a superstar in Washington, comment 1. If you think the Wizards might hold him back, comment 2. And subscribe for more NBA stories like this. The night Washington got its savior. When Adam Silver stepped to the podium in Brooklyn, everyone already knew the name was coming. But when he said it out loud, everything changed. AJ Dybansa was officially the #1 overall pick, and for one brief moment, Washington had exactly what every broken franchise dreams of. A fresh face, a new beginning, and a player talented enough to make people believe again. But the celebration had another layer. Dybansa did not just walk across that stage as AJ. He wanted his full name honored because it carried his father's story with it. That detail mattered. It showed the world that this was not just a basketball moment. It was a family moment, a legacy moment, the kind of moment that tells you this kid understands the weight of where he came from, and that is why the Wizards' situation feels so intense. Because Dybansa is not some ordinary prospect hoping to find himself. He already knows who he is. He has been moving like a future star since high school. He has been trained, challenged, watched, compared, doubted, and praised long before draft night. The NBA did not surprise him. He had been preparing for it his entire life. Washington needed that kind of player badly. This franchise has spent years stuck between rebuilding and restarting, between patience and panic. Fans have watched promise turn into disappointment too many times. So when the Wizards landed Dybansa, it looked like the reset button had finally worked. But the problem is simple. Getting the star is only the first step. Protecting him, developing him, and building the right environment around him is the hard part. And Washington's recent history does not give fans a lot of comfort. That is why draft night felt like two stories happening at the same time. On one side, it was beautiful. A young man honoring his family, reaching the NBA, becoming the face of a franchise. On the other side, it was dangerous. A generational talent entering a team that may not be ready for the responsibility of having him. Because once the hat goes on, the dream becomes real. And once the dream becomes real, the pressure arrives immediately. A franchise haunted by its own history. To understand why people are nervous about AJ Dybansa in Washington, you have to understand the Wizards' past. This is not a franchise with a recent record of turning elite prospects into champion. This is a franchise that has repeatedly had talent, hope, and opportunity, only to watch everything fall short. That history matters because young stars do not develop in a vacuum. They become great when the organization around them knows what it is doing. They need structure. They need a clear identity. They need leadership that understands when to push, when to protect, and when to step back. Washington has not always shown that. For years, the Wizards have been searching for a direction. Sometimes they rebuild. Sometimes they try to win quickly. Sometimes they collect young talent. Sometimes they chase veterans. And that kind of uncertainty can damage a young star before anyone realizes it is happening. That is the fear with Dybansa. He is arriving with superstar expectations, but also with a franchise that has not earned blind trust. Fans remember John Wall, a No. 1 pick who gave Washington everything and still never got the championship-level support he deserved. They remember how much excitement surrounded him and how painful it became when the team could not finish the job. They remember Kwame Brown, too, another No. 1 pick whose name became a warning about pressure, development, and what happens when a franchise is not prepared for the player it drafts. Now Dybansa walks into that same city carrying even bigger hype. That does not mean his story will end the same way. He is different. His mentality is different. His skill set is different. His confidence is different. But the concern is not whether Dybansa can play. The concern is whether Washington can avoid becoming the obstacle in his rise. Because history does not repeat itself exactly. Sometimes it returns wearing a different jersey, with a different name, and the same dangerous warning. If the Wizards get this right, Dybansa could change everything. But if they get it wrong, this could become another painful chapter in a franchise that has already had too many. The Trae Young and Anthony Davis problem. The biggest complication in Washington is not that the roster lacks talent. It is that the roster may have too many competing timelines at once. AJ Dybansa is supposed to be the future. But Trae Young and Anthony Davis are not future pieces. They are win-now names. They are established stars with reputations, contracts, habits, and expectations. They are not walking into the locker room to quietly move out of the way for a teenager, no matter how talented he is. That is where the tension begins. Trae Young has spent his career with the ball in his hands. His game is built on control. He runs pick and rolls, creates shots, bends defenses, and dictates the rhythm of an offense. You do not pay a player like that massive money and then turn him into a background piece. Anthony Davis brings a different kind of pressure. When healthy, he is one of the most powerful two-way players in the league. He demands touches. He changes defensive plans. He expects to compete. A player like Davis does not join a team just to be part of a long, patient rebuild. So where does that leave Dybansa? That is the uncomfortable question. He is a number 1 pick with franchise player tools. His best development may require touches, mistakes, freedom, and the chance to learn through responsibility. But if Washington are trying to win right away with Trae and Davis, at first, that might sound reasonable. Rookies should earn everything. But generational prospects are different. If you treat them like ordinary pieces, you risk slowing down the very thing that makes them special. The Wizards will say the fit can work. They will say Trae can create easy looks for him. They will say Davis can protect him defensively. They will say Dybansa can score off the catch, run the floor, defend, and grow naturally. Maybe that is true. But NBA locker rooms are not built on theories. They are built on touches, trust, status, and sacrifice. Someone will have to adjust. Someone will have to give up control. And if nobody does, Washington's dream lineup could become its first major problem. The kid from Brockton who was built for pressure, what makes AJ Dybansa different is that pressure has never seemed to scare him. In fact, pressure has been part of his story from the beginning. He comes from Brockton, Massachusetts, a place that shaped his toughness before basketball ever made him famous. He did not grow up surrounded by easy paths. He grew up understanding that nothing was going to be handed to him. That matters because his game carries that same edge. He plays like someone who has been chasing something bigger than attention. His family story adds even more weight. His father's journey, his mother's roots, the cultures behind him, and the name he carries all became part of the player he is today. When Dybansa chose to honor his father on draft night, it showed exactly what motivates him. He is not just chasing stats. He is carrying people with him. That is why fans connect with him so quickly. He represents hope, but not in a soft way. His rise has been intentional. Every move has felt calculated. Every stop has had a purpose. He left comfort to face better competition. He chose development over spotlight. He built himself for the league before the league ever officially called his name. And maybe the most powerful detail is the meaning of his name, undefeated. That word sounds almost too perfect for a player like him. But it also creates a certain expectation. A player who sees himself that way is not going to accept being minimized. He is not going to be satisfied with standing in the corner while others decide the game. He is not going to quietly wait forever if the organization around him does not match his ambition. That is what Washington has to understand. Dybansa is young, but he is not passive. He has been planning this moment for years. He has watched the NBA. He knows how quickly a bad situation can change a career. He knows that talent alone is not enough, if the environment is wrong. So when people ask whether Dybansa can handle the pressure of Washington, they may be asking the wrong question. The real question is whether Washington can handle the pressure of Dybansa. The BYU decision that revealed everything. Before AJ Dybansa became the #1 pick, he made one decision that told everyone how differently he thinks. He chose BYU. For a top recruit, that was not the obvious route. He could have gone to a blue blood program. He could have picked a school with decades of NBA history, packed arenas, and a traditional superstar pipeline. Instead, he chose the place he believed would prepare him best for the league. That was not random. That was strategy. Dybansa looked at BYU and saw an NBA-style environment. He saw Kevin Young, a coach with real professional experience. He saw a staff built around development, strength, nutrition, analytics, and daily detail. He saw something that looked less like a college stop and more like a training ground for the next level. That decision said everything about him. He was not chasing the loudest brand, he was chasing the best preparation. And that matters now, because it proves Dybansa has always cared deeply about environment. He studies situations, he chooses carefully, he thinks beyond the next headline. At BYU, he backed up the decision with production. He became the center of everything. He scored, carried responsibility, handled pressure, and showed he could lead a team through difficult moments. He was not just talented, he was dependable when the stakes rose. That is why Washington is such a fascinating test. At BYU, the structure was built to elevate him. In Washington, the structure already has other powerful pieces. At BYU, his path was clear. In Washington, the path could become crowded. At BYU, he could grow into the main voice. In Washington, he may have to negotiate space with veterans who already believe they have earned it. This is where the story gets real. Dybansa has shown he can thrive when the system matches his ambition. But what happens when the system is complicated? What happens when he cannot simply dominate the environment right away? What happens when the organization asks him to be patient, even though everything in his career has been built on rising fast? BYU proved he is special. Washington will prove whether that special talent can survive chaos. Why the league is already watching closely. The reason every NBA executive is watching this situation is simple. Players like AJ Dybansa almost never become available. And even if he is not available now, the league is always waiting for signs. A frustrated young star can change everything. Dybansa has the tools teams dream about. He has size on the wing. He can create his own shot. He can attack in transition. He has touch in the mid-range. He can finish through contact. He has enough handle to punish mismatches and enough athleticism to turn broken plays into highlight. But the upside goes beyond scoring. His defensive ceiling is what could make him a true franchise-changing player. Modern NBA teams are built around wings who can switch, cover ground, survive playoff matchups, and still carry offensive responsibility. That is the most valuable player type in basketball. Dybansa has the body and the talent to become that kind of piece. That is why teams will pay attention to every detail. How many touches is he getting? Is he closing games? Does Trae trust him late? Does Davis support his growth? Does the coaching staff give him freedom, or does it box him into a limited role? Does his body language change? Does the media start asking uncomfortable questions? These things matter in the NBA. A trade rumor does not always begin with a trade request. Sometimes it begins with silence. Sometimes it begins with frustration. Sometimes it begins when other teams sense that a star's timeline and a franchise's timeline are not perfectly aligned. Washington knows this. That is why they cannot afford to treat Dybansa like just another young player. The league would line up if even the smallest crack appeared. Teams with assets would start preparing. Contenders would dream. Rebuilding teams would call. Big markets would whisper, because Dybansa is more than a rookie. He is a possible franchise identity. That is also why the Wizards must be extremely careful. If they empower him, protect him, and build correctly, they may have their next era. But if they mishandle him, they will not just lose games. They could lose the most important player they have drafted in years. The trade rumor that should scare Washington. The most dangerous part of this story is not that AJ Dybansa has already done something wrong. He has not. He has said the right things. He has shown respect. He has carried himself like a professional. The danger is that the trade conversation exists at all. That should scare Washington. When a #1 pick is drafted, the normal story is simple. The team celebrates, the city dreams, and the franchise builds everything around him. But with Dybansa, the conversation became more complicated almost immediately. People started asking if the fit was clean. They started wondering if Washington's win now moves had created a strange environment. They started comparing his path to other young stars who needed more control earlier in their careers. That kind of noise does not disappear by itself. It grows if the team struggles. It grows if roles are unclear. It grows if Dybansa has strong games but does not get enough late game touches. It grows if Trae Young dominates the ball and the rookie spends too many possessions watching. It grows if Anthony Davis misses time and the team suddenly asks Dybansa to carry everything before he is fully ready. And once that noise starts growing, other franchises notice. Imagine a team with a clean young core calling Washington. Imagine a contender offering picks and proven players. Imagine a big market believing it can give Dybansa the stage he needs. The Wizards do not want that conversation. But if they fail to create stability, the conversation will come to them anyway. This is why the first season matters so much. Not because Dybansa must instantly become an All-NBA player. That is unrealistic. It matters because the first season will reveal Washington's priorities. Are they building a long-term system around him? Or are they trying to force him into a short-term plan built around veteran? Those are very different futures. The Wizards cannot say Dybansa is the future while making every important decision for the present. They cannot sell patience while acting desperate. They cannot call him the cornerstone and then use him like an accessory, because in the modern NBA, young stars understand their value faster than ever. And if Washington forgets that, the trade rumors will not stay rumors forever. The 3 ways this story could end. There are really 3 possible endings to AJ Dybansa's first chapter in Washington, and every one of them comes with risk. The first ending is the dream ending. Dybansa fits. Trae Young becomes the veteran creator who makes his life easier. Anthony Davis protects the paint and gives the rookie a defensive foundation. The young core accepts its roles. The coaching staff builds a system where Dybansa grows without being rushed, but still feels central to the future. If that happens, Washington becomes one of the most exciting teams in the league. Not because they are instantly a championship favorite, but because they finally have direction. They finally have a player who gives the franchise a real identity. For years, the Wizards have been searching for something fans could believe in. Dybansa could become that belief. He could be the bridge between a painful past and a future that finally feels serious. But that dream ending requires sacrifice. Trae would have to understand that his job is not only to score and create, but to help unlock the next face of the franchise. Davis would have to become more than a star big man. He would have to become a stabilizing presence, the kind of veteran who teaches without controlling. The young players would have to accept that not every possession can be about their own development, and the front office would have to stop chasing shortcuts long enough to let the process breathe. The second ending is the power shift. Maybe injuries hit, maybe the veterans decline, maybe the team realizes faster than expected that Dybansa is already the most important player on the roster. In that version, Washington has to make a difficult but necessary choice. Stop pretending this is a veteran-led team and hand the keys to the rookie. That could be painful, but it might be the right move. Sometimes a franchise has to admit the future arrived earlier than planned. If Dybansa proves he is ready, the Wizards cannot be afraid to change direction. They cannot let contracts or reputations block the obvious path. In the NBA, the biggest mistake a team can make is refusing to adjust when the truth is right in front of them. If Dybansa starts controlling games, if his confidence grows, if teammates begin looking for him in big moments, Washington must recognize what is happening. That would not be disrespectful to Trae or Davis. That would simply be basketball reality. Great teams follow the player who gives them the best chance to build something lasting. The third ending is the dangerous one. The team struggles. Roles become messy. Dybansa feels underused. The veterans feel questioned. The front office sends mixed signals. Fans get restless. Media pressure rises. And slowly, the story shifts from excitement to frustration. That is how NBA relationships start to crack. Not all at once. Not with one dramatic moment. It happens through repeated confusion, missed opportunities, and the feeling that a franchise does not know what it has. One night, Dybansa may take only a few shots in the fourth quarter. Another night, he may stand in the corner while the offense runs through veterans. Then reporters start asking why the #1 pick is not more involved. Then fans start clipping every possession. Then every facial expression on the bench becomes a theory. That kind of pressure can poison a season. Washington has to avoid that at all costs, because Dybansa's talent gives them a rare chance. But rare chances do not guarantee success. They have to be managed with honesty. The Wizards need to decide what they are building and who they are building it around. If the answer is AJ Dybansa, then every move must prove it. If the answer is something else, the league will eventually notice. Other teams will watch. Agents will listen. Media voices will get louder. And before Washington even understands what is happening, the conversation could shift from how good can Dybansa become to how long will he stay. That is the nightmare ending. And the only way to prevent it is clarity. Not slogans, not press conference answers. Real clarity. Clear roles, clear communication, clear patience, clear trust. Because the most dangerous thing Washington can do is pretend everything is fine while the foundation is already shaking. The lesson Washington cannot ignore. The lesson in this story is bigger than AJ Dybansa, bigger than the Wizards, and bigger than one draft night. It is about what happens when a franchise finally gets a special young talent and then must decide whether it has the discipline to protect him. Washington cannot treat Dybansa like a miracle that solves every problem instantly. He is not a shortcut. He is not a cover-up for years of bad decisions. He is not a magic button that turns a struggling franchise into a contender overnight. He is a foundation, and foundations must be built carefully. The smartest move for the Wizards is not to rush him, not to bury him, and not to confuse him. They need a clear plan. Give him real responsibility. Let him learn from Trae Young without being trapped behind him. Let him benefit from Anthony Davis without making the entire timeline depend on veteran health. Let him make mistakes, grow through pressure, and understand that the franchise truly sees him as the future. That is how trust is built. The human side matters too. Dybansa is young. He is carrying family pride, city pride, and national expectations. He will hear criticism, he will face pressure, he will have bad nights. Washington's job is not just to use his talent, it is to support the person behind it. Great franchises understand that. They do not just draft players, they develop people. They create peace inside the chaos. They communicate honestly. They avoid ego battles. They do not let impatience destroy something rare. If the Wizards do that, this could become the beginning of a beautiful new era. AJ Dybansa could become the player who changes how people see basketball in Washington. He could bring energy back to a fan base that has waited far too long for something real. But if they fail, the warning signs are already there. The crowded roster, the veteran pressure, the unclear timeline, the trade whispers, the history that still hangs over the franchise. Washington has been given a gift. Now they have to prove they deserve it. If you believe AJ Dybansa will become the face of the Wizards, comment 1. If you think Washington should rebuild fully around him right now, comment 2. Subscribe for more NBA stories, share this video with another basketball fan, and hit like if you want more deep NBA breakdowns like this.